It started with a scream, metallic and inhuman, echoing across the scrapyard in the crimson twilight. Garin Vetch dropped his wrench. The human scavenger and ex-soldier had heard every kind of pain on the battlefields of the Coalition Wars. But this wasn't pain. It was despair. He stepped over a collapsed panel from an old Corvanti dropship and moved toward the source. Between heaps of scorched hulls and sparking droid torsos, something shifted beneath a threadbare silver medical tarp. A figure, lying there like discarded junk. He peeled it back. A woman, no, something more, lay barely breathing. Her skin shimmered, violet and copper beneath the grime, too perfect to be real, too fragile to be a machine. Her body was covered in faint scars and surgical grafts. A white tag on her ankle read, "Medically non-responsive, euthanized by nightfall." Garin clenched. His fists. The alien medical order had abandoned her, deemed her unworthy of care. He'd seen this before. The sovereign clinics followed the biopurity directive. If your DNA dipped too far outside the norm, you weren't considered alive enough to treat. Screw them, he muttered. Her chest heaved once, labored. Eyes fluttered open. Glowing amber irises locked onto his. "You are not one of them," she whispered. The words were slurred, broken. "They left me." "Yeah, well, they don't. Speak for all of us." Garin lifted her gently, careful not to jar her ribs, 3 of which looked fractured. She was weightless. The alien woman tried to protest, but her body gave out. Her head slumped against his shoulder. He didn't take her to a hospital. Instead, he loaded her into the back of his speeder truck and burned down the canyon road to someone he hoped could help, someone who'd never taken the Hippocratic Oath, but had saved lives all the same. The vet Dr. Elson Marn stood in the doorway of her outpost clinic, chewing on a protein bar and eyeing Garin warily as he carried the alien into her office. "Garin, you realize that's not a canine or a sandworm. You're carrying, right? She's a person," he said, voice low. "And she's dying." The vet took one look at the alien's condition. Pulse erratic, neural burns, synthetic bone marrow implants, and immediately tossed her protein bar aside. "Put her on the table, now." Hours passed in a blur of clanking tools, biogel injections, and cursing. Elson worked like a storm, improvising every step of the way. She wasn't certified in alien xenogenetics, but out here in the fringe wastes, no one was. You learned by saving things no one else dared to touch. Garin watched, helpless, as Elson drilled into the alien's chest and connected a portable pulse sync device. The alien's body arched, then stilled. "She's stabilizing," Elson said. "Barely. But I've never seen anything like this. She's augmented." Garin exhaled and ran a hand through his dust-caked hair. "What is she?" he asked. Elson just shook her head. "Something important, I think. Someone they didn't want walking around." Hours later, in the dark silence of the clinic, the alien's eyes opened again. Her voice was clearer now. "What is this place?" "Vet's clinic," Garin said, sitting beside her bed. She blinked. "I am not a pet." "No, but the vets here care more than the damn alien doctors did. You were on the verge of death. They gave up. I didn't." There was a long silence. Then she spoke again, voice trembling. "My name is Jarell. I was a diplomat's consort. Then they turned me into something else, experimented, said I was property. I ran." Garin felt something twist inside his chest. "You're free now," he said. Jarell looked at him, eyes gleaming with something unfamiliar. "Hope. Why? Would you help me?" He hesitated. The honest answer was, he didn't know. Maybe it was her voice, or the defiance in her broken body. Maybe it was because no one else would. "Because you're alive," he said finally. And that should be enough. The next morning, a drone zipped past the clinic. Garan caught the flicker of sovereign markings on its undercarriage. Trouble was coming. They hadn't forgotten her, and they were coming to finish what they started. The whine of engines pierced the calm morning like a blade through silk. Garan stood on the rooftop of Elson's clinic, eyes locked on the distant trail of dust blooming over the horizon. It wasn't just one sovereign scout drone. It was an entire skimmer convoy. Sleek, angular machines built for pursuit, not diplomacy. They found her, Elson muttered beside him, peering through macrobinocs. That was fast. They must have tagged her, Garan said. She's got a tracer implanted somewhere. He jogged down the stairs 2 at a time and entered the small treatment room where Jarell was still resting. She looked better. Color. Returning to her metallic violet skin, lips no longer trembling when she spoke. Her gaze turned toward him instantly. You feel it too, she said. Garan nodded. They're coming. I warned you, she whispered. You should have left me there. Not happening, Garoon growled, moving to the diagnostic display. We're finding the tracker. Elson, scan for embedded frequency spikes in her subdermal network. Elson didn't argue. A minute later, her screen lit up. There, she said, pointing to a small node near Jarell's spine. Embedded in her vertebral sheath, pulsing once every 5 seconds. Garoon didn't wait. He grabbed a sterilizer, forceps, and a neural dulling patch. This is going to hurt, he said softly. Jarell didn't flinch. Do it. The moment the tracker popped free, it began to emit a shrill chirp. Garan smashed it under his boot. Elson tossed him a burner satchel. Get her out of here. Head north through the Karen Pass. There's an old weather station, abandoned, but it still has shielding tech. They won't trace you there. What about you? Garoon asked. I'll buy you a few hours. He wanted to argue, but he knew. Elson knew that look in her eyes. She had saved more lives than most doctors with 10 times the training. She was also ready to burn her clinic down before letting the sovereign bastards take another patient. He hoisted Jarell into the seat of his rust-streaked hoverbike and wrapped her gently in a stabilizer harness. You trust me? He asked. Jarell, still woozy, met his gaze. More than I trust anyone else. Then they were gone, sand spraying behind them, engines roaring as the sun rose over the fractured wastes. Chased through fire, they flew through the Badlands like ghosts. Ahead, volcanic rocks jutted up like ancient bones. Behind, sovereign skimmers sliced through the sky. The bike jerked violently as a pulse blast scorched the rocks near them. They're firing now, Garan shouted over the wind. That means they've given up on discretion. Jarell twisted her body enough to see behind them. 3 units, light arms. They're trying to disable the bike. They won't. He veered sharply, dodging between canyons and half-sunken transport wrecks. One of the pursuing skimmers clipped a ridge and exploded in a flash of blue fire. Jarell closed her eyes, drawing in a breath. There's something I haven't told. You, she said. Now's a hell of a time for secrets. I wasn't just a consort. I had access to sovereign command relays. I overheard plans for something catastrophic. That's why they turned on me. They think I know too much. Garen's grip on the handlebars tightened. So they're not just hunting you. They're trying to bury what you know. Yes, she said. And if they catch me, it won't just be execution. They'll unmake me. More blasts came. This time, one caught the side of the bike, sending it spiraling. They crashed hard. Sand filled Garen's mouth and lungs. His ears rang. He coughed, blinked blood from his eye, and checked on Jarell. She was bruised, but alive. Her arm was bent at an ugly angle. He cradled her gently. Hold on. From the wreckage, 3 sovereign operatives emerged, clad in obsidian, armor visors glowing red. The lead one pointed a slender weapon at Garen. You're interfering with interstellar justice, human. Step aside. Garin rose slowly, placing himself between them and Jarell. His voice was like thunder. Justice? You dumped her like scrap. Metal. She is illegal property, the agent said. No one owns her. Garin lunged. Burning steel and blood. He didn't have a weapon, just his fists, and the rage boiling through him. The first operative struck, but Garin dodged and slammed an elbow into the side of the man's helmet. It cracked with a satisfying pop. The soldier reeled, and Garin grabbed his dropped rifle, twisting and firing in one motion. The second one went down. The third launched a plasma blade. It sliced Garin across the ribs, scorching his shirt. He screamed, but didn't back down. Jarell forced herself up, even with her dislocated arm. Energy pulsed in her fingertips. Latent circuitry embedded in her veins shimmered to life. Her body, part machine, was awakening. She raised her hand. A surge of directed energy burst from her palm, striking the last attacker with such force he flew backward and slammed into a boulder. Silence returned. Garin fell to one knee, gasping. Remind me to stay on your good side. Jarell collapsed beside him, weak but alive. I didn't know I could do that. He looked at her, breathing hard. You saved me. She smiled faintly. Now we're even. Shelter in the Tau. Storm, they reached the abandoned weather station just before sunset. The dome-shaped building groaned under the wind. Inside, Garin patched their wounds while Jarell lay wrapped in thermal blankets, skin glowing dimly in the dark. I didn't mean for you to risk your life, she said softly. Garin sat beside her, eyes heavy. If I had to do it again, I would. She turned to him, her eyes wide. Why? He hesitated, then answered, raw and unguarded. Because I think I care about you, and I don't want to lose another good soul to people who only see value in control. Her fingers brushed his. Then stay, she whispered. Until morning. He stayed. Outside, the storm screamed. Inside, for the first time, they were warm. The storm howled through the Kirin Pass, wind flinging sand like a swarm of stinging insects against the shattered dome of the weather station. Inside the derelict outpost, Garin sat cross-legged on the cold floor, a field kit spread open in front of him. He was repairing a comms unit using a broken thermal blade and worn wire, but his eyes kept drifting to Jarell. She was lying on a slab of insulated crates, fitfully asleep. Her arm was in a makeshift sling, and faint pulses of light shimmered beneath her violet skin, tracing the web of golden circuitry that laced across her body. Every few moments the glow would ripple outward from her chest in a slow, steady rhythm, like a heartbeat made visible. She wasn't just enhanced, she was something else entirely. When she stirred, her voice was cracked but clear. You're still here. Garin didn't look up from the comms device. I said I'd stay. Jarell sat up slowly, hissing as the movement pulled on her wounded shoulder. She looked down at her glowing fingers, then back to him. I'm not just a witness, Garin. I'm a code bearer. He finally looked up. What does that mean? She exhaled, steadying herself. It means the Sovereign's embedded biometric access keys into me, without my full consent. I was a backup encryption host for Fleet Command protocols. I only learned the truth when they tried to isolate me. They planned to extract the codes. Painfully. Garin was silent for a long moment, processing. So you can override their command network? Their ships? Their orders? Jarell nodded slowly. They think I'm dead, but if they find out I'm still alive, they'll send more than just patrols. They'll send executioners. They won't risk me falling into anyone else's hands. He stood up and began pacing the floor, jaw clenched. You're not just a refugee. You're a weapon. A threat. I never wanted this, she whispered. I ran because I was terrified. And when the doctors gave up on me, it was because they knew. If I died, the codes would too. Garun turned to face her fully. Then maybe it's time you stopped running. By morning, they'd begun scouting the outskirts of the ruins, searching for any working components, power cells, signal cores, antennas, anything that could help build what Garun had in mind. Jarell kept asking questions as they worked, and he answered each one with a kind of quiet focus she hadn't seen before. "We're not calling for rescue," he explained, as he cracked open a rusted comms relay, buried in sand. "We're going to hijack the Sovereign Fleet's own signal chain, just enough to insert a false directive." "You think we can spoof a command?" she asked. "No," he said, "but we can intercept one and reroute it." She paused. "You were more than a courier." He looked up at her and nodded. "Systems engineer. Rebel cell. All gone now. So I started walking. I fixed things. Carried messages. Kept out of the way." Jarell placed her hand gently on his arm. "And now you're saving me." "I don't know what I'm doing," he said with a crooked smile, "but it feels right." As dusk fell, the system was ready. Garun powered up the patched comms array and waited while Jarell placed her hand on the cracked biometric reader. Her golden circuitry pulsed brighter, interfacing with the ancient system. The control panel flickered to life. Glyphs scrolled across the screen in the sovereign tongue. "I'm in," she whispered. Garun leaned closer. The terminal streamed. Data, active fleet positions, patrol schedules, encrypted order logs. Then a tone rang out, sharp and shrill. Jarell stiffened, eyes wide. "They know. An alarm just triggered." The ground shook beneath them. They ran to the open hatch and looked up. Descending from the sky was a sleek black dropship, its hull humming with gravitational displacement. It slammed into the sand with terrifying force. Dust and debris erupted around it like a geyser. From its ramp stepped 4 armored sovereign soldiers, flanking a towering figure clad in obsidian battleplate. Jarell's breath caught in her throat. "Inquisitor Varl." Garun loaded a fresh power cell into his rifle. "Let's finish this." The battle was immediate and brutal. Garun moved like a man possessed, weaving between cover and fire, his pulse rifle barking hot plasma. One enemy fell with a scream as Garun's blade slashed across his chest plate. Another exploded under a point-blank detonation. Jarell, half-healed, fought with the desperate grace of someone with nothing left to lose. Arcs of golden light burst from her fingers, melting armor and shattering weapons. Her voice carried, across the ruins, a defiant song of fury and survival. Varl approached slowly, methodically, deflecting her attacks with an energy shield. He was nearly 3 meters tall, his armor etched with kill runes. "You should have died in the clinic," he growled. "Your death was sanctioned," she raised her chin. "I decided to live instead." He lunged. His fist struck her side and she crumpled. Garun screamed and charged. The Inquisitor swung, but Garun ducked low and rammed his knife into a joint, under the chest plate. With his free hand, he pulled the trigger on his rifle at point-blank range. The blast threw both of them through the air. Silence followed. Smoke drifted from the wreckage. Jarell crawled to his side, shaking. "You're bleeding," she whispered. "I've had worse," he rasped, though his lips were pale. She helped him sit up, cradling him in her arms. "We did it," she said. "We scrambled the relay. They'll hesitate. We have time." Garun looked at her through blurry eyes. "You can run now. Use the codes. Vanish." Her voice shook. "Why would I run from the only man who treated me like a person?" He pulled her close, and their lips met, soft, trembling, real. The sunrise was just beginning to crest the dunes as they vanished into the horizon. 2 fugitives bound by more than fate. They were survivors. They were no longer alone. 2 days passed. In the ruins of the old satellite uplink facility, Garun's wounds were healing, slowly, stubbornly. Jarell watched over him, tending to each gash with trembling fingers. Her golden circuits dimmed often now, flickering as if even her inner fire was fading. They had taken shelter in a hidden chamber beneath the comms tower, once used for planetary diagnostics. It wasn't much, just dust-covered panels, cracked screens, and the lingering scent of burned wires. But it was away from drones, scans, and hunters. For now. Garoon awoke to the soft hum of a biosensor. Jarell was leaning over a console, her expression tense. "Something's wrong," she whispered. He sat up slowly. "Define wrong." She turned to him, her eyes wide. "A signal, military grade, not sovereign, something older, deeper, and it's not looking for me, it's looking for you." He blinked, stunned. "What?" She stepped aside and let him see the interface. It showed a long-range scanner trace, a beacon frequency bouncing off every orbital relay still functional in this dead zone. The code signature was unmistakably human, not rebel, not resistance. Pre-Exodus Earth standard, something ancient. Jarell crossed her arms, her voice guarded. "You told me your people were all gone." "They are," he said quietly. Or, "They were. I haven't heard a trace of Earth origin signals in years." The beacon pulsed again. This time it carried a data packet. Garin accepted the transmission with shaking hands. The screen filled with a scrambled but partially translated message. "To any survivors of Project Helix, Garin Isel, if you're alive, return. We found the core. We can fix it all." Jarell stepped back, her voice soft. "You never told me about Helix." He exhaled slowly. "Because I swore I'd never look back." He told her everything. About the failed Earth program designed to create adaptive engineers, humans capable of surviving anywhere, integrating with machines, learning alien code in days. He was one of them. Raised in isolation, trained, enhanced, and then abandoned when the war turned against Earth. Project Helix was shut down. Its subjects scattered, hunted, or lost. He'd spent a decade hiding, then wandering, refusing to reconnect to that part of himself. Jarell touched his hand gently. "They're calling to you now, offering purpose, a future." He looked at her. "And what if it's a trap? Then we spring it together." By the next day, they'd begun the journey eastward, toward the coordinates embedded in the beacon. Through scorched valleys and fungal forests, they trekked, together, through broken skies and memory-haunted wastelands. Along the way, they grew closer, not just from shared struggle, but from truth. Jarell told him about her youth on the star colony of Lithivail, her brief moment of joy before the Sovereigns came, her first and only rebellion, when she refused to let them rewrite her mind. And Garin told her of Earth, of oceans that stretched forever, of sky fires, of music that no longer had a home. She wept when he sang to her. She kissed him under a shattered sky. By the fourth night, their bond was unspoken, but ironclad. When they arrived at the coordinates, there was nothing. No base, no welcoming signal, just a crater, and in the center, a single tower. Black, unmarked. Jarell tensed. Something's wrong. As they approached, the tower activated. Blinding light swept over them, and Garin's HUD scrambled violently. His heart raced. Then a voice echoed through the dust. "Welcome back, Subject 12. Jarell drew her blade. "That's not Earth tech." "No," Garin breathed. "It's Helix, but twisted." The ground opened beneath them. They fell. When they landed, they were surrounded by mirrored walls, thousands of reflections twisting in wrong angles. From the darkness, a figure stepped forward. It looked like Garin, but older. Broken. Wired into a suit that pulsed with artificial life. "I am what you could have been," the figure said. "What you were meant to be." Garin stood up slowly. "You're a remnant. A superior outcome," the double sneered. "The project failed because we hesitated. You walked away. I became what Earth needed." "You became a ghost," Garin shot back. The clone pointed to Jarell. "And you brought contamination with you," Jarell's eyes flashed. "Say that again." "She's a sovereign experiment," the remnant hissed. "A living code bomb. We can't risk integrating her. Garoon stepped in front of her. She's more human than you. The remnant's expression darkened. Then you'll die like one. Alarms screamed, the room shifted, panels sliding open to reveal auto turrets and armored sentries. A storm of fire erupted. Garoon and Jarell moved in tandem, his blade striking sparks off the nearest drone, her golden arcs tearing through metal. They fought side by side, bleeding, screaming, laughing like maniacs in the chaos. And when Garin reached the main core, Jarell covered him with her last strength, facing down his own ghost with fury in her voice. He rerouted the tower's energy through his helix interface and looked up. "I'm not your shadow," he whispered. The room exploded in a burst of light. When the smoke cleared, the tower was gone. Garin was unconscious, cradled in Jarell's arms. Her fingers trembled as she whispered to him through her tears. "You're not alone anymore. You never were." He stirred, his voice ragged. "Did we win?" She smiled. "You're alive. That's enough." But a new signal pinged her mind. And this time, it wasn't sovereign. It was something older, something worse. Their battle was far from over. The mountains were behind them now, buried under rubble and memories. In the cold plains beneath the shattered moons of Quran 5, Garoon and Jarell moved silently through fog and snow. The remnants of the Helix Tower had vanished in a white flash, its echoes still humming faintly inside Garin's mind. He wasn't alone in hearing them anymore. Jarell was changing. It started subtly. Her skin's golden circuitry began to pulse in sync with Garin's biorhythm. Then came the dreams. Shared. Vivid. Too perfect to be coincidence. They were becoming linked, not just emotionally, but neurologically. The Helix core hadn't just responded to him, it had responded to both of them. "This isn't just memory corruption," Jarell whispered one night, tracing the lines on her own arm. "Something in the core fused with me, with you. It's rewriting both of us." Garoon didn't flinch. "Then we rewrite it back." He held her closer that night, as if shielding her from the stars themselves. But something was coming for them. A message had arrived, delivered not by transmission, but through the environment itself, pulsing changes in wind, distortions in magnetic fields, planetary tremors. The signal had a source. Arc Unit 0, the original Helix Vault. Hidden beneath a long-dead city swallowed by time, Arc 0 was the birthplace of the genetic forges that created the first adaptive humans. It had been dormant for years, until Garoon activated the core. Now, it had reawakened, and it was calling them both. They found it buried under kilometers of ash and collapsed stone. Entering it was like walking into the bones of a god, frozen, ancient, humming with memory. The vault recognized Garin instantly, but when Jarell stepped through, the door didn't close behind her. It opened wider. Inside was a chamber filled with living stasis, clones in rows, many resembling Garin. Some not quite human, others failed. A central AI core descended from the ceiling like a great eye. Project Helix, reclamation protocol initiated. Jarell raised her hand. "You brought us here. Why?" "Genetic compatibility anomaly detected. You represent a hybridization solution, biological integration of sovereign circuitry with Earth's adaptive strain. Survival probability increases by 89%. Garin narrowed his eyes. "You want to use us to make more weapons?" "Correction. Not weapons. Survivors. Evolution." A platform rose from the floor. On it were two empty sarcophagi, one shaped like him, the other unmistakably molded for her. Jarell stepped back. "You expect us to crawl into those things and become, what? Breeders for your broken legacy?" The AI's voice was neutral. "You are already becoming. Accelerated transformation will allow full neural linking. You will become the seed." Garin took Jarell's hand. "No." The AI hesitated, You refuse continuation of the species? Refuse enslavement, Garun growled. You think survival is enough? That sacrifice and love mean nothing? We are not your templates. Suddenly the vault began to shudder. A sovereign assault signal pierced through the walls. They had found them. The AI began shutting down containment protocols. Drones activated. Walls began to shift. Jarell looked at Garun, her breath ragged. We can't outrun them this time. Then we make our stand. Together they ripped open the control panel and uploaded a feedback loop, one that would cause the AI to overload and collapse the vault in on itself. A tomb for the past. A clean slate for whatever future might follow. But the sequence required a manual anchor. One of them had to stay inside. Jarell didn't hesitate. I've lived with borrowed time, she said softly, placing her palm on the activation crystal. You gave me more life than anyone. Now I give it back. Garun grabbed her wrist. No, we do this together. Her eyes welled with light and sorrow. Garun, you showed me I could be more than a failed experiment. More than a sovereign mistake. Let me finish that gift. He kissed her, desperate, fierce, eternal. I love you, he said, voice shaking. I know. She stepped into the core, linked herself to the neural net, and smiled at him one last time. Now run, human. He did. As the vault collapsed behind. Him in a storm of fire and collapsing stone, the sky above turned gold. A burst of energy shimmered across the heavens, Jarell's spark merging with the planet's memory, becoming something more than code or flesh, something legendary. Months later, Garun returned to the place where it all began, the ruined veterinary station. He rebuilt it, but this time, it wasn't for survival. It was a sanctuary. He welcomed the lost. He saved the abandoned. And at night, when the winds carried faint whispers, he listened. And sometimes, he could hear her voice, still watching, still loving, still part of him. Want to discover what happens when Jarell's consciousness resurfaces in a new form? Or what Garun uncovers when the sovereigns make their final move?